We fell in behind the horses. I thought they would try to lose us by increasing their pace, but the horses only moved steadily, causing us to move at regular march to keep up. I was happy Calm had repaired the sole of my boot. I was in the back row of our marching block with Brutus to my left and Firth to my right. Firth, the old veteran muttered. This is going to be a miserable night march. Good thing we have those glowstones. You will need to charge mine. He passed it to me, and soon I had a cycle of glowstones coming at me. They were the glowstones they had requisitioned from me. I kept the remaining 4 stones in my dimensional space, fearing they would also be requisitioned. As I finished charging the glowstones, more riders came racing up behind us. Firth barked, shields to the rear, spears and archers at the ready. 4 men who had acquired body shields in the army camp cycled to form the wall, and 2 men with round shields took the ends of the shield line. 4 spearmen were behind the 6 shieldmen, and 4 archers were behind them. Adrian and Delmar stood in the rear, and I was with them. Constantine and a few others darted off the road into the brush to flank the possible attackers. All this was well practiced and happened in heartbeats. Delmar yelled, "Hold! Break and reform ranks! It is just the hounds!" 9 riders led by Cornelius came up on us and settled into a walk with their mounts. Cornelius smiled in the waning light. "Constantine, I am surprised you did not steal horses for your company." Constantine laughed. "I am sure Octavian was waiting for me to try so he could shackle all of us." Cornelius laughed with him, probably. He sent us off to track down 2 regulars in the woods who thought better of rushing the walls of Makkah. "No need to worry, Constantine. We will make sure your mage gets to the capital in one piece. Since you are walking in that direction, I am sure you will see to the capital eventually." He laughed at our predicament. Constantine asked seriously, "What is the pulse of our chances before a tribunal?" Cornelius frowned while his men rode forward at a hand signal from him. He frowned. "Octavian will worm himself onto the tribunal with Duchess Veronica. The Emperor will appoint the 3rd based on the highest bidder for the judgment seat. Unfortunately, I do not think he is invested at all in Mage Castile's fate," Firth asked Cornelius. "Isn't Octavian the Emperor's son? Doesn't that mean he will get his way? The Emperor doesn't favor any of his children." "Quite the opposite. He is always on guard against them. I doubt it will work in Castile's favor, though." He spurred his horse forward to catch up to his men, leaving us. We kept our formation and kept the riders in sight. They were kicking up a significant amount of road dust. The dust soon coated everyone. As the sun set, the glowstones appeared on the men on the outside of the block as we marched. Larita had done an amazing job healing everyone. My only issue was that my feet had no calluses, just pink new skin. I could feel the blisters forming already just a few miles into the march. As the night set in, the blue moon was hidden by heavy clouds, causing a heavy darkness. Our men on the edge of our formation had fixed the glowstones to their shields. The shifting shadows, the glowstones generated from the trees and shrubs, created a spooky and eerie feeling, especially since I knew my new world had dozens of horrors that could rush out of the darkness. The contingent of mounted legionaries in front of us brought their own light. Heavy directional beams of light bounced around far in front of us as they served as the vanguard. It made me think I could do the same with my glowstone. Make a simple flashlight with a polished metal funnel. As the night wore on, the horses kept opening distance on us. The bouncing lights got further and further away. Delmar and Adrian paced us at the front. They knew our best speed in the dark on the dirt road to not wear us out. At least, with the open distance, we did not have to deal with the horse's heavy dust cloud any longer. Hours into the march, Brutus spoke. "Well, this is not all bad. At least we are not being sent to assault the walls of Masha to retake the city," Firth said. "There is that, but from what I heard, they do not plan to assault the city. They have some powerful earth mages with them, and plan to tear down the outer walls. Probably take half the lower city as well." Wiley turned. "What about the citizens that remained?" "They should have fled. I talked with an acquaintance in Master Mage Dacian's company. Dacian is tasked with bringing down the western wall, and then rebuilding it after the city is taken," Firth said calmly. "So they are just going to destroy the city and then rebuild it?" I asked incredulously. "It will take a few months, but yes," Firth said. "It was the plan all along. They needed the Barteradians inside the city. Then why is Castile going to a tribunal? Wiley asked from the row in front of us. Her orders were to hold the city until Duke Tiberius arrived, Firth replied. I was dumbstruck. In other words, Castile, Gregor, and Durandus were going to fail no matter what. The only way they could have survived the Barteradians and succeeded in the plan would have been to hold the inner city walls until the Duke's army felt like showing up. Everyone was too tired to talk after that, as Adrian ordered a slight increase in pace, just short of a jog. It seemed ridiculous that we could keep up with horses. At least Cornelius said he would make sure Castile would reach the capital. We passed through 3 towns throughout the night, and when we could no longer see the lights of Octavian horses, we reached a small bridge, and Delmar called, 30 minutes for water and food, Constantine barked. No one removes their boots. I know your feet hurt like your first march in training, but it will only be worse if you take them off. We have about 55 miles to Carenhagen. Fill your canteens by the spring and saturate your bellies. Damn hours of marching, and we were only a third of the way there. Men rushed to drink, eat, shit, and piss. Lucien, our company horsemaster, tried to cheer everyone up, most likely. They will have to rest their horses twice before they reach the city. Maybe we will pass them while they are watering them. I was with Brutus, Felix, and Matteo, shoveling down food. I noted, I cannot believe how dry and cool the air is. It was humid daily in Maka, and we are not far from the city. One of the larger ley lines runs under this road. It plays with the weather above it, Brutus answered. Felix asked. Don't they have ley lines in Singa? I replied slowly. We do, but I didn't grow up near one, and my education was lacking. Rest is over, came a shout from Adrian, saving me from having to explain further. I needed to be careful when referencing Singa. With my recent luck, we would have another legionnaire from the distant kingdom join our company. I sent some healing aether to my feet to keep them in good condition. I was one of the few men moving without wincing or grunting. It did not take long for everyone's training to kick in and ignore the foot pain. We were going to do 80 miles in heavy boots with over 60 pounds of armor and gear. Some men who had geared up in camp with shields, spears, and arrows probably regretted their decision. We entered into a fast walk, and silence reigned among the scuffing of boots on the dirt road. When the sun began to rise, it was not salvation, though. Down in a valley, a river cut into a town. Octavian's legionaries' silver armor sparkled on the new day's light. We had caught up to them. We kept on the road and continued our march instead of turning off into the town below. The mood brightened some as Castile was down there somewhere, and it looked like we were going to reach Carenhagen and make the portal. By mid-morning, we passed a sign that indicated we were 41 miles from Carenhagen. I was surprised that Octavian's men had not ridden up behind us yet. Just before the sun reached its midday zenith, we were called to halt again. Not even Constantine looked great after 50 miles of forced marching. I worked my stiff and sore shoulders out with a touch of healing. It almost felt like I was cheating. Men collapsed to the ground, trying to find the energy to consume food, but many preferred a quick nap. I drank and ate from my pack as well. The more I consumed, the lighter it would be. With the companies spread on the side of the road, Octavian's column rode up behind us. As they passed, they increased to a light gallop. Their faces were smug as there was no way we could cover the last 30 miles before them. Castile was still stoic and rioting in the center of their formation. After they passed, Firth nearby swore, Harpy's tits. If the Duke orders the displacement mage to send him as soon as they get there, we might have to wait 2 or 3 days before the next portal, opening to the capital. Adrian snapped, frustrated. What do you suggest we do, Firth? We have no stamina potions, and I am pushing the pace as much as is safe. If we are denied healing in Carenhagen or Telha, we will be laid up for a week of healing. I had never seen our leader's nerves so frayed before, and Adrian had pushed through serious injuries just a day ago to escape the city. Send men on. There are a few of us who can push harder. If the Dukes rush the Tribunal, Castile will have no witnesses to defend her. She deserves a few of us to try, at least, Firth muttered aggressively. I had not known he cared enough to defend Castile, especially since he worked for one of the Praetorian Guard. Who is willing to jog 30 miles to the city? My best guess is you need to make it in about 5 hours to catch the portal opening, Adrian asked almost as a plea. Constantine dropped his pack and pulled his canteen. Fill my canteen and I will go. Benito, Linus, Pavel, and Eric are the only other ones who look like they can make it. Benito nodded and dropped his pack. Pavel did as well, albeit reluctantly. Linus looked like he was not happy being volunteered, but slowly dropped his pack. Well, shit. Getting volunteered again. Give me more full canteens. I can squeeze 5 in my dimensional box, I offered. Everyone quickly shuffled in their packs, and I shoved the canteens and some food into the box in my space, filling it. The 5 of us left our packs to lighten our load. The only weapon we each took was our short swords and belt knives. We jogged after Constantine in a line. The 5 of us were mismatched body types. Constantine was squat and barrel-chested. Benito was short and thick. Pavel was almost as tall as me and wiry. And Linus was the only person in our company who did not look like he was layered in muscle. Then there was me. I was both tall and thick with muscles. As we started our jog, Constantine paced us from the front. It was a light run, maybe we were making 10-minute miles. Constantine had selected our group well. Only Pavel was struggling visibly when we reached a road sign at a town noting 11 miles to Karenhagen. Pavel had a limp that was growing more pronounced with every mile. Constantine noticed. Come on, Pavel. You have all that gold waiting for you in the Adventurers Guild. You just have to earn it with a little pain. Constantine was referring to the gold we were promised for discovering the lost dungeon. That was over 70 gold. It motivated Pavel as he did not waver until the city walls of Karenhagen came into sight. Constantine swore, thought we would have caught sight of them before the walls. The tall stone walls of the city did not have a sprawl of farms or buildings outside of it as Masha did. The last mile of the road became paved with stone as we approached. It was late evening, but there was still plenty of light. The city guards at the gate stopped us, and Constantine rasped, How long ago did the Duke ride through? The gate captain spent a moment looking us over. We were covered in dirty sweat and general filth, and Pavel had trouble standing on his right leg. The Duke passed just under an hour ago. Thank you. Constantine tried to move past. The guard blocked him. Legionnaire, you must enter your men in the registry, the guard said seriously, pointing to the guardhouse. Did the Duke register his company? Constantine snapped. The guard looked uncomfortable. No, he flew his flag, and we counted his men as they rode through. Good. Add 5 more to that count, Constantine said, pushing past. The guard was sputtering, but I did not hear as I followed Constantine. I did not have time to admire the city as Constantine moved quickly through the streets, dragging us along. The citizens gave us a wide berth, probably due to both our state of filth and displayed urgency. We arrived at a large courtyard with a familiar stone arch, and the Duke's horses and men were waiting. Castile was dismounted in the center of the group and talking with Cornelius. Cornelius spotted us and pointed to a small stone building. Constantine barked. Frigging paperwork. Wait here. If the displacement mage arrives and opens the portal, go through. Do not wait for me. Do not let anyone stop you. I will go register our travel with the clerk. Constantine stomped away, finding energy in his anger. Pavel found a barrel to sit on and peeled off his boot on his right leg. As he removed his blood-soaked sock, it was apparent the flesh on his heel had split, and the heel bone was showing. Linus and Benito were not as bad. They still had bloody socks, but just from blood blisters. I left my boots on as I had kept my feet in good shape with touches of my healing ability. Cornelius approached us as we checked ourselves and waited on Constantine, who was getting vocal inside the clerk's building. Impressive feat getting here on foot. I could use men like you in the hounds. Do any of you have a spell form? I knew a spell form was required to join the hounds, but none of us answered him. After a pause, he asked, Is this all that made it? Cornelius indicated our group. Pavel answered non-committantly while delicately inspecting his heel. They should be here soon. Constantine joined us, his face red from yelling. He barked at us. We are fine to enter the portal to the capital. Cornelius eyed him. You were always a tough bastard, Constantine. Good thing, too. Octavian sent a message to have a Truthseeker lined up to expedite the Tribunal. If you had not made it, they would have proceeded without your testimony. My limbs suddenly got very cold. We were going to be questioned by Truthseekers. A procession of legionaries in metal armor approached. They were escorting the displacement mage. 15 minutes later, the portal opened, and the Duke's procession started entering. "Do not bother putting your boots on. Just move through," Constantine barked, and we all shuffled to the portal to follow. I had a thought about falling to the back and missing the portal by accident, but Constantine was behind me and pushing me forward. I entered the portal and emerged in the capital of the Telhian Empire. I walked out of the portal prepared, not stumbling, and quickly took in my surroundings. The Duke's horses were being led away in an opening in a wall to the right. We were in a box-shaped stone pit about 40 feet across. On each side of the 30-foot stone wall were 6 archers and a person in mage robes. The archers had steel legion armor reflecting in the sun. The displacement mage was behind us by the portal arc we had exited in the pit, and had a dozen legionaries around him. Constantine broke my gawking. "You 4, get to the East Legion Hall. Find a healer." "I am going to the Magistrate's Hall. Do not leave the Legion Hall no matter what. I will find you there later." Constantine hurried off, not explaining any further. "Does anyone know how to get to the Lower East Legion Hall?" I asked. My companions had boots in their arms and bloody bare feet or bloodied socks. Linus spoke, wincing as he put on his socks. "The city was designed to be easy to navigate." "I have been there before," Pavel groaned. "I know where it is, too. Probably almost a mile walk from here." He did not want to wear his socks and boots again, but started doing so. Benito noted, "It is the smallest of the 3 Legion halls in the Telha. The Imperial Legion Hall houses the Emperor's personal guard. It is actually close by." He indicated the passage the horses were led into. "The Western Legion Hall is outside of the western walls, and near the Perfectus Legionis. That is where they train the men who volunteer for the Legion." Brutus mentioned that. "He trained there," I added as we began to walk. I was the only one not struggling with each step. We did over 80 miles in about 18 hours. It probably would not have been as bad for them if Mage Larita had not healed their feet. The newly healed skin could not take the abuse of the march. I had learned on the march how to heal my feet and not lose the calluses as they built up again. "That is where the Loyalist legionaries train," Linus muttered. "They get paid as soon as they start and spend twice as long training as us conscripts. Not twice as long, just a full year, but better training too," Pavel painfully grunted out between steps. "I think Adrian was a volunteer, but I don't know how he got assigned to our company." We reached the top of the ramp, and the city spread before us. The roads were made from immaculate large granite pavers. The buildings all looked uniform and neatly arranged along the road. Everything was made from a white stone with highlights using black marble. Arches and columns were used heavily in the construction. It was beautiful. The most impressive feat was the height of the stone buildings. Some had 10 floors when I counted the windows. The windows were also massive, easily 10 feet tall and half that in width. The men and women walking the road wore thin, colorful fabrics in dozens of styles. We reached an intersection, and I paused. The road we entered was the main thoroughfare for the capital. I could tell because to our left was a massive structure, easily 500 feet in height, a shining white and silver beacon in the late afternoon sun. "Never seen the Emperor's Palace, Eric. It boggles the mind. Something so big for just one man to live in," Linus said. Pavel looked and noted. "There are probably 1,000 men of the Legion inside and another 1,000 in the building to the right. It is the Imperial Legion Hall, and the Emperor has what? 100 consorts and hundreds of servants. I am sure the palace is full." His tone was indifferent. "How many consorts?" I asked, imagining a massive harem. "Does he have hundreds of children as well?" I added. "It is 7 consorts." Linus scoffed at Pavel's misinformation, "and he can only name 7 of his children first citizens by law. The rest he marries off of sending them abroad." Pavel gripped quietly. "I doubt he limits himself to his 7 wives. He is known for taking what he wants." We turned away from the palace and started walking in the opposite direction. The wide road was busy as evening was approaching. Pairs of legionaries patrolled in metal armor. It felt like we were the scrubs with just auroch leather armor. But I guess leather armor was lighter, cheaper to make, and easier to maintain. I would hate to have to spend every evening polishing my metal chest piece. My helmet took enough effort to keep the rust at bay. We finally encountered food carts, and I bought everyone's skewered meat. The vendor called it pork, but it tasted like spicy chicken to me. The pause in our walk was short, and we were on the move. Everyone was eager to get the healing. We tossed the skewers into a trash barrel on a corner. The city was extremely clean, and sanitation was much higher here than in my previous stays. The civilians got thicker and thicker on the street as we went further and further from the palace. Some intersections had large fountains with mural mosaics tiled in the bottoms of the pools. We did not stop to look, but it looked like legionaries battling various beasts. My head snapped around and my jaw fell open. A leopard man was being led by a cable with a collar around his neck. That is a tabaxi, one of the catfolk. Linus seemed confused. I thought they were common in the jungles near Tsinga. I scrambled to think of a response. It was not the catfolk, but the fact it was collared like a pet. He nodded sadly. The beast races are not allowed freedom in the Empire. They are a rare sight, and usually too feral to tame. I watched as the catfolk disappeared on its leash in the crowd. What are the beast races? I asked, looking for more in the crowd of humans. Linus was willing to answer. There's a zoo in the upper city. I went once. Let me Siminators are the bullmen. Tabaxi are the catfolk. Satyrs are the goatmen. Centaurs are the horsemen. Arakokra are the birdmen. Yuan-ti are the snakemen. There was one more, he said, trying to think of it. The lizard folk, Pavel supplied, but all the beast races are about as welcome in the Telhian Empire as elves and dwarves. Where do the orcs fit in? I asked. Linus answered, they group them with the goblinoid races, but do not ever call them a goblinoid if you meet an orc. They are as intelligent as you or me. Well, maybe not Benito. Linus waited for Benito to remark on the jab, but he walked on oblivious. Linus continued, smirking at Benito. The goblinoids are the bugbears, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, gnolls, ogres, and trolls. Pavel grunted as he stepped. I am no scholar, but that is a very general classification. I have never met an orc before, but if you call him a goblin, I would not be surprised if he swore a blood oath to kill you for it on the spot. We took a left turn, and the city buildings off the main road were not as opulent. They were still stone constructions, but instead of being homogeneous, it became a mixture of various stones. Also, the buildings were only 3 stories tall now. We were within sight of the outer wall. At least I think it was the outer wall, as it was twice the height of the buildings when Linus said, "We are here." Linus was walking down a side street that lacked a heavy flow of people. A small park with trees was at the end of the road, and a large black stone building was beyond. The large entrance had a pair of Legion guards on either side in leather armor. The building looked like an imposing structure with a single large statue on top. Pavel sighed in relief at having arrived. Linus said, "We are in the old city. This building was built by and used by the First Legion. Now it is not as impressive as the Imperial Legion Hall or the Western Legion Hall, but it is the nicest Legion Hall you are likely to see in your service as a volunteer." The black archway entrance was guarded by 2 men in leather legionnaire armor, and led to a courtyard with an open sky above. Legionaries in the courtyard were in and out of leather armor, milled about on stone benches. They looked up at us as we entered. We were still a mess. Linus stepped forward. "Is there a healing mage on duty?" One of the men in leather armor stood and approached. "You 4 look like you just came out of the arse of an ogre," he introduced himself. "I am Severus. The baths are over there." He pointed to an archway to our left. "I will go and bring a healer. We use the healer from the clinic down the street. The only company healing mage we had is off to the assault on Masha." We gratefully made our way into the baths. The stone inside was the same onyx black as the building, but the space was well lit with glowstones. 4 boys came and took our clothes and armor as we stripped. We entered the showers with brushes and fresh soap. As we washed, Pavel noted, "Damn, Eric, your feet do not look bad at all." "Yeah, Larita did not heal them. I still had my calluses and my socks dried in the sun," I responded calmly. He just huffed and did comment again. "I was in the heated bath first. This bath was actually a lot nicer than the upper baths in Masha. The seating under the water formed to your ass, and the water was hotter. I waited almost half an hour for the others. They had waited for the healer to arrive before joining me in the soaking pool. Linus asked, "Do you want the healer, Eric?" I shook my head no, and he waved off the man in the other room. He settled into the pool. He only had a spell form, but he was good. Pavel is digging through his pack to tip him some coin. Benito came and just jumped into the pool like a kid, causing a splash and waves of water. The center of the pool was much deeper, and he appeared to know that in advance. When he came up, he laughed. Damn, this almost makes me forget the last 3 days. He joined us, and then a happy Pavel joined us as well. His feet were pink with new skin, but the bone was no longer exposed. We soaked in silence, and Benito started snoring. It was an hour before a naked and clean Constantin joined us in the pool. He sighed as he entered and kicked Benito awake. With all our attention, he started. The tribunal starts tomorrow. We were lucky we made it before the displacement mage opened the portal. It is going to be at least a week before it will open again, Linus asked. So what do you need us to do? Constantine nodded. I was at the magistrate's hall where the tribunal will be held. Tonight, we will all head back and give statements to the Truthseekers. They will use the transcript for the trial in the morning in defense of Castile. We will wait outside and may be called to clarify our statements. Did Castile get a good advocate? Pavel asked. Constantine shrugged. I do not know who is counseling her. The tribunal is Duchess Veronica, Duke Octavian, and Duke Vito. I do not know Vito other than he was visiting the Emperor from his province. The only good news is the Emperor did not appoint the Duke that Octavian had wanted as the third. Constantine stood, having only been in the pool for 10 minutes. We will go and get fresh clothes and sandals from the Legion Hall quartermaster, while our clothes are being cleaned. The sooner we talk to the Truthseekers, the better. I was left in no position to object. I noted a little sourly the cost of the linens and sandals was being added to my Legion debt. Even Benito was smart enough to see we were being charged twice what they were worth. We soon walked in the fading sun and followed Constantine to the magistrate's hall. Constantine had us leave our weapons behind. I was extremely nervous as I had no idea what this encounter with the Truthseekers would entail, but I had no other choice. Constantine led us back toward the upper city where the portal stone was located. Pavel said, They may have been expensive, but they are comfortable. He was fingering his new linen shirt. It is also new. Most of the clothes we requisition at other Legion halls may be free, but they are also used, sometimes with a hole in it that you need to sew shut. Constantine got us focused. When you are questioned, you need to answer questions truthfully and use as few words as possible. They will ask you for an opening statement. Say that Castile could not prevent the fall of Macha. Remember the facts. Master Mage Durandus got himself killed, so he was not available to anchor the defense. The displacement mage was assassinated days before the Bardaradians arrived. The army surrendered after the lower city fell, which was why we fled. I don't know about the last one, Constantine. We left the city before they surrendered. We only heard they were going to surrender, I said after considering what I remembered. I did not want a Truthseeker to call me on a lie. Constantine grunted. Fine. Just tell them the Bardaradians were cutting through the barricades quickly, and were going to reach the inner city walls less than a day after breaching the outer walls. Linus asked thoughtfully, Will they just question us about the siege? Constantine walked a little slower. They are the Imperial Truthseekers, not the lowly ones you find in a town or city. They can ask about anything. Most likely, they will only ask questions about Castile, as that is who you are giving a statement for. Her tribunal starts soon, so we need to do this now so copies can be distributed to each duke on the tribunal. I was extremely nervous now. Can we refuse to answer questions? I asked. If you do, they will just dig deeper. Constantine responded with a glare. I felt trapped but made an effort to keep my mind sharp. I knew body language was important from watching cop shows. I needed to look calm and respond calmly. I focused on getting into that state of mind for the rest of the walk. We reached a building with 2 beautiful giant marble statues of a woman holding scales and a man holding a sword flanking the entrance. Who are they? I asked, marveling at the artistry of the statues. The detail was amazing, and I thought they could come alive at any moment. They represent Justica and Ulcio, the gods of justice and vengeance, Constantine said, pushing the doors open and not looking at the statues. Maybe he had seen them before. A man in white robes came rushing forward. All business will be handed on the morrow. We are here to give statements for the ducal tribunal starting in the morning concerning mage cast style. I already talked with Magistrate Aurelia. She approved statements to be given to a Truthseeker, Constantine said with annoyance. The man stuttered for a moment and thought, Magistrate Aurelia IC can do that. There are 2 Truthseekers still in the north wing. I will set up the rooms. Please wait here. We were standing in the lobby. Above us, on the ceiling, was a massive mural. The painting showed legionaries fighting back what appeared to be a giant black demon. What is that depicting? I asked, pointing up. Constantine and the others looked up. Constantine took in the whole scale of the mural. It is the arrival of the First Legion during the Abyssal War. They managed to turn the tide and banish the demons. It is probably more myth than truth. To my knowledge, no greater demon has ever been seen outside a dungeon. The mural is more likely showing the First Legion battling the demon in a dungeon. The man in white robes returned. The rooms are ready. The Truthseekers are being pulled from their studies. Which 2 of you will go first? Constantine gave me a slight push in the back. Shit. I would have preferred to go last. I was soon walking down the hall with Constantine and following the man who was walking with long, hurried strides. We proceeded through the maze-like building. Many of the walls and ceilings had massive murals of creatures and battles. They seemed out of place in a building that was the court of law in the Empire. We reached a series of doors made from a bright blue wood. 2 men in white and gold robes approached us. One was a graying man with haggard eyes, and the other was a young man, no older than 15, with black hair and a bowl cut. Our guide introduced the 2. Truthseeker Nico, he indicated to the older man. And the newest Imperial Truthseeker, Yanis, he pointed at the younger man. Constantine looked at both, and pointed to the older man. Truthseeker Nico can take my statement. Eric, you can have the boy. Yanis pursed his lips in distaste at being called a boy. I did not appreciate Constantine injuring someone who would be questioning me. The young Truthseeker opened a blue door and motioned me inside. The room was not what I expected. 2 comfortable-looking plush chairs faced each other in the center of the room. The walls were painted an off-orange, and the floor was light yellow stone. You can take either chair, Yanis said while retrieving a notebook from a small shelf. Forgive me, but what is this statement concerning? I was summoned from studies just minutes ago. This was a relief. Maybe I could keep everything focused on Castile. Our company mage commander is being accused of abandoning her mission to defend the city of Masha. I tried to make idle conversation. The blue wood is interesting. Is it stained, or is that its natural color? He looked at the blue door. That is tastewood from Singa. It absorbs sound so people outside the door cannot listen in, damn it. I hope he didn't learn I was from Singa. Otherwise, my question would be suspicious. I decided not to try for further idle talk. He seated himself across from me and wrote for a few minutes before looking up. He focused on me. The crime is quite serious. He turned the page and concentrated. Please limit your next answers to yes or no. Are you planning to do harm to the Empire or Emperor? My jaw would not work for a second. I thought I was giving a statement for Mage Castile. Yes. Well, I just finished my training, and we are always supposed to ask 3 questions whenever we do a reading. Not all Truthseekers do it, but like I said, I just began my training, and was told it is standard practice. My teachers would be upset if I did not follow protocol. He impatiently asked, Now, are you planning to harm the Empire or Emperor? No. He scribbled something quickly. I did not feel anything, so I was not sure how his truth ability worked. He asked his next question. Have you done harm to the Empire or Emperor in the past? No, I answered calmly, and he wrote again in his book. And the final opening question. Do you have magics on your person to deceive a Truthseeker? He was turning a small black ball in his hands, waiting for me to answer. No. I said more slowly than I probably should have. Focused on the ball. He scribbled, and the young Truthseeker looked up after disappearing the ball into his pocket. Excellent. Please give your statement slowly so I can record it. I will ask questions if relevant. He looked up, waiting, appearing patient. I tried to remain as relaxed as possible. Our company was to defend Makkah until the Bartaradians arrived and surrounded the city. Then, the Duke was supposed to come and kill the Bartaradians outside the walls. Instead, one of the 3 mages sent to defend the city was killed, making the defense impossible. Then the displacement mage was assassinated with all his legionnaire guards. I waited while he wrote. Then, I continued, without the portal, we had no resupply. The outer walls fell in the first assault, even though Castile put in a valiant effort to defend the Traitor's Gate. The inner walls were about to fall, and we were told the army was going to surrender. We escaped on the aqueduct and lost a third of our company, and another third were seriously injured during our evacuation. He finished writing and waited for me. When I did not add more, he read what he wrote about 5 times before asking a question. What was the name of the mage, and how did he die? Did the Barteradians kill him? I used his title, Master Mage Durandus. A shambling mound monster in the swamp killed him. The Barteradians were not responsible. He studied me as I spoke, and then wrote in his book. I thought he was sent to defend a city. Why was he in a swamp? He looked up, waiting for my answer to clear up his confusion. We were helping with patrols outside the city. A storm giant was digging in the swamp. I paused, ordering my thoughts carefully. But we didn't know it was a storm giant at the time. Durandus went to explore to see if it was a threat, and I was sent with his company to help. When we found out it was a storm giant and Durandus attacked it, I stopped there. He wrote furiously, and the shambling mound was under the control of the storm giant. No, we killed the storm giant. But most of Durandus' company was killed in the effort. On the way back to the city, the shambling mound killed him, I replied. He tapped his writing implement, thinking, Did you or any of his company play a role in Master Mage Durandus' death? He asked, studying me too intently for my liking. I answered carefully, No. Mage Durandus was collecting essence from a frozen shambling mound. It broke free and threw him into the swamp. When we found him, he was dead. He paused before writing. He spent a long time considering his next question. Why did Durandus attack the storm giant? They are formidable foes. Was it threatening the city? He didn't tell me, but I am fairly certain he wanted the giant's essence. He consumed it as soon as he collected it. He was also interested in what the giant was digging for. But I think he ordered the attack for the essence, I replied truthfully. Yanis wrote slowly, thinking on another question. I guessed by his fatigue that each answer took his either to verify. What was the storm giant digging for? I don't know. Durandus said there was a city for the giants buried under the swamp, I replied. There was a what? Yanis replied quickly. I realized this bit of information had only been told to me. Castile has not been interested in this detail. A city where the giants used to live, buried with time. Durandus seemed obsessed with trying to find out what the storm giant was digging for. He couldn't delve deep enough with his senses, so we were returning to the Maca when he was killed. The young Truthseeker scribbled furiously. And do you know where this dig site is? He looked up and asked. Sure. It is not difficult to spot. There is a massive crater where he was digging in the swamp south of Maca. The Truthseeker finished his writing. He reviewed everything he had written, and it was a good 30 minutes before he focused on me. The giant city seemed important to him, so I was expecting more questions concerning it. He was distracted when he asked, yes, you said the displacement mage was assassinated with his guards. How did this happen? Returning to my statement and the purpose of this session. I spent the next hour telling how we found the first Barteradian infiltrators and knew others were in the city. Constantine had warned the displacement mage, but they attacked him through the sewer wall in his basement, taking him by surprise. He asked about Mage Castile's pursuit of the air mage that had killed the displacement mage, and how he escaped the city and destroyed the aqueduct. Unfortunately, my knowledge was limited in this part of the story. Then he started to ask questions about our flight from the city. My heart was pounding, just waiting for him to get a sniff of my abilities. I was lucky as the Truthseeker was distracted as he asked questions, and I gave short answers. I assumed he was still thinking about the giant city under the swamp. I didn't know why, though. He was so young. Why would he be interested in an ancient city that was inaccessible? It looked like he was getting fatigued as well from the ether expenditure. I think we are done, he finally said. It had been almost 3 hours. Your statement and all relevant information will be transcribed for the ducal tribunal in the morning. Where can you be reached if the dukes seek to question you further? I will be waiting outside the chamber. At least that is what I was told I would be doing, I answered. He nodded, tapping his stylus on the pad. Somehow, I had never had to reveal that I had a dimensional space, or anything else about myself. He thought I was just a regular legionnaire. I walked into the hallway and found Constantine, Pavel, and Benito. "Who is next?" I asked. "Constantine next. We finished 2 hours ago." "All of us." He motioned all of us to walk away. "After a good distance, what did the young Truthseeker ask?" "I gave him to you because he looked green. All you had to do was offer a statement he could verify. He asked a lot of questions about Dorandu's death and the displacement mage's assassination. A lot of questions. Then he focused on our escape from the city," I said, throwing up my hands. Constantine studied me. "Did you insinuate Castile was responsible for either of the deaths?" Constantine was calm but looked concerned. "No," I chirped at the accusatory comment. He was more interested in Dorandu's fight with the storm giant and Castile's pursuit of the air mage who destroyed the aqueduct. Was he trying to tie the air mage to Castile, that they might be working together? Constantine said insistently. "I don't think so. I wasn't there, so I could not give him any information. I think he was just trying to confirm Castile didn't let him go on purpose," I said hastily. Constantine seemed to think. "Okay, we are heading back for just a few hours of sleep, and then we will come and camp outside the tribunal chamber. We need to make sure the advocate received our statements. They can make sure the dukes read them. Constantine took off, and we followed. Raelia walked the camp, looking for the meal tent for the riders. She had seen it from up in the air before she landed, and it should be near this abandoned farmhouse. There, she spotted it. The tent flaps were green and not black this time. She walked inside to the smell of food being cooked. The cook plated her some food with a smile, and she took the plate to a table to sit opposite Zyla, her commander. The tall, lean elf woman smiled. "Raelia, the food is good tonight. A sweet pepper sauce over brown rice and shredded venison. You took down the deer, didn't you?" Raelia smiled back. "You are always telling us never to risk combat from our mounts, yet you do it every flight." Zyla smirked. "Well, I answer to your brother. You answer to me." "I am sure you answer to him a lot in his tent privately," Raelia retorted, and quickly received a kick to her shin from her commander. "Not when we are on a campaign," she scolded Raelia. However, it was not a well-kept secret. The other generals on the campaign would frown on me distracting him. Raelia tasted the food. Too sweet. They must have added honey again. Her commander tried to hide a smile. "It was you. You asked for it. When you were the one who brings in a 300-pound fresh game animal for the table. The cooks tend to honor your requests," Zyla said, shoveling the food into her mouth with a smile. After they both finished the meal, Raelia asked, "What are my orders?" Zyla rolled her eyes. "The postings are 20 feet away on the tent wall." "Fine. You lazy elf. You are circling the city from 2 miles above with Nessa, Eleanor, Diana, and Yavanna. We are attacking tonight as planned. I will fly out and ensure the Duke's army has been delayed." "By yourself?" Raelia asked, knowing that doctrine did not allow riders to operate alone. "Rena is coming with me." "And no, I am not taking you. You would probably try to fly too low and count the Duke's army or something else foolish," Zyla said seriously. "We have 30 minutes before we exchange flights." They left the tent together and went to where the Griffins were stable. The attendants had fed them raw horse meat while they had been getting their own dinner. Moonclaw saw his rider approaching and nipped 2 other Griffins, Monsoon and Sunflare, out of his way to get to Raelia. The Griffin's head nuzzled her chest, lifting her off the ground with its powerful neck. "Moonclaw, be nicer to the others," Raelia scolded weakly. He continued nudging her until she rubbed the feathers around his ear holes. He started clicking his tongue in appreciation. Finished with the affectionate beast, she started to prepare. Raelia checked the harness twice, inspecting it for wear and fit. When Griffins were used in rapid rotation like this siege, they would lose weight rapidly, and you needed to adjust the straps constantly. It was for your own safety and the comfort of the Griffin. Nessa, Eleanor, Diana, and Yavanna were already in their saddles. Raelia swung her small frame up into the saddle. She scanned the skies, waiting. A few minutes later, a Griffin started to land. Raelia and her patrol took to the air one at a time, blowing dead leaves into small cyclones from the force of taking off. The wind blasted through her face and hair before she activated her air spell form to shield the rush of wind in her face. She circled the camp once to inspect the army. Thousands of men were below her like little ants scurrying about. She was glad she was a rider. She soared high into the sky before starting her dull circle patrol. She pulled her spyglass and watched the defenders of Maka prepare for the inevitable. She had nothing against the people of the city. Their emperor and his hatred of non-humans was the rot of the Telhians. They had killed many Barteradians on Barteradian soil in the last 2 years. This assault was their own fault. The Telhian plan was also painfully obvious. They would put up a token resistance and let the Barteradians take the city. Then they would trap the Barteradians in the city. Her brother and the other generals were smarter than that, though. They had killed the displacement mage in Macha, and they planned to reinforce the city themselves through the portal after taking control of the city tonight. Then they would let the Telhians waste their men and legionaries trying to retake the city. Her brother, General Cleon Glavian, would ensure the Telhians were much weaker after this battle. Returning Maka to Barteradian hands was sure to be a bloody endeavor. 3 flight rotations later, Moonclaw was exhausted as he flapped his wings and glided over the night battle below. It was dark, and the fog had allowed the army to reach the walls and gates. It would not be long now before they broke the defenders on the wall. Then, a huge gust of wind ripped from the city. Raelia had to let the wind take Moonclaw and her away. She saw the battlefield revealed below, the fog eliminated. The Barteradian attackers were suddenly exposed. Arrows pelted them from the walls, and men were falling by the scores. Raelia felt helpless. She was not supposed to do anything but observe and report. Maybe she could help, though. The defenders were focused on her brother's army. She could possibly prepare a fireball, swoop down, and release it before they tracked her. She started to guide Moonclaw with her legs, guiding him with the stirrups and squeezes of her thighs. He was sensitive to her body movements and understood what she wanted. The important thing she needed to do was shield the fireball as she formed it. Otherwise, it would be like a beacon in the sky to the defenders. She mentally worked the weave of her ether into the spell forms, layering the ether in a well-practiced action. She would have to dive to get into range to release the ball of fire, though. She needed to remain unseen. The glowing ball of destructive heat twisted between her cupped hands as she squeezed her knees and dug her heels in. Moonclaw dove at the unspoken command. The range of her magic fire was 120 feet. She needed to get about 100 feet away and release on the dive. Moonclaw knew this as well and would rise after the fireball was released. She was focused on the tower on the left. There was definitely a mage there. She revealed the light of her prepared spell, and was about to throw it when the spell forms dissolved in her hand. She grabbed the reins and pulled hard. The mage in the tower had seen her and disrupted her spell form. She needed to Moonclaw, shrieked in pain, as an arrow protruded from his wing, with wispy black tendrils wrapping his wing. He could not flap to turn away from the city. There was no time as she tried to get him to land on a rooftop in the city. Moonclaw came up short and crashed hard into the building. As they fell between 2 buildings, the Griffin did his best to spare his chosen rider. The ground came fast, and she never had time to activate her featherfall device. It would have minimized her own body mass and made the crash less impactful. Instead, Moonclaw bounced on the ground, and the impact tossed Raelia out of her saddle and into a building, breaking ribs and wrenching her knee. She must have hit her head because she was dazed as well. When she got senses and back to her feet, Moonclaw was protecting the alley from a squad of legionaries. Moonclaw was injured and overmatched. She tried to form a fireball, but her head hurt too much, and she could not focus. Moonclaw shrieked in pain. She couldn't help him. She cried as she limped away into the alley, looking for a place to hide. Moonclaw, her friend that she had raised from an egg, would buy her time. She wiped the tears and focused on escape. She took a simple healing potion on her belt. As its effects spread, her mind started to clear as she hobbled away. The potion was not enough to heal her ribs or knee, but it did give her back enough sense of mind to cast magic. A shifting light came up behind her. The legionaries were already on her. Fucking legionaries! Anger welled in her as they killed her mountain friend. It was not the first friend she had lost to the Telhian legionnaires either. She timed the approaching light, spun with her daggers drawn, parried the sword strike, went into a roll, and came up in a crouch, grimacing from partially healed injuries. The Legionnaire looked surprised she had evaded his attack. He was just staring at her like an idiot. "I will kill you, Legionnaire," she rasped in his own tongue. Blood trickled from her lips as she spoke. At least her ribs felt slightly better from the potion, but she probably had a damaged lung, as breathing was difficult. As she waited for the Legionnaire to attack, loud booms came from the outer wall. She smirked, knowing her brother was probably sending all 3 assault elements at the wall in an attempt to save his stupid sister, who had crashed into the city. She just needed to hide until he got his forces inside the city. She thought Xillia would scream at her for this, and her brother would probably have her exiled from the Riders. First, she needed to survive long enough. The large booms had the young human Legionnaire nervous. His long black hair was matted with sweat under his metal legionary helm. He held his short sword with skill, but seemed reluctant to attack. She needed to stall him, while her mind worked the spell forms for a fireball. "Your city will return to us, and the Duke's army will not save you," she said, with as wicked a smile as she could conjure through the pain. He relaxed in his defensive stance, underestimating her. He started to talk. "Can you just—" She finished her spell form and ignited her fireball. "I woke in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep. I wandered around the building. Most rooms were lit softly by a single glowstone embedded in the stone. I found a small, empty private bathroom with running water and a mirror. It must be for a mage commander, but it was currently barren of personal possessions. Looking in the mirror, my beard had grown in. I decided to access my barber's kit and clean up. The straight-edge razor was new to me, but I could quickly heal the skin even if I nicked myself. Experimenting, I found the key was finding the right angle and using light, short strokes. I applied the face balm and looked much better in the mirror. I put the kit away and continued my wandering of the Eastern Legion Hall. The complex was huge. There were classrooms, offices, private bedrooms, dining rooms, and a very large kitchen. "Can we get you something?" a pudgy cook who was preparing the morning meals asked. Since I was here. "Ham steak and scrambled eggs?" I asked hopefully. The cook motioned for another of the kitchen staff to fill my request as she appeared to be in charge, and focused on the dough she was kneading. I asked, "Is this building always so quiet at night?" "No, this is the quietest it has been since the last Duke's coronation. Back then, the Emperor sent 2,000 legionaries to his province's citadel to show his support." The cook continued to roll the dough with her well-muscled forearms and hands. I sat across from the woman on a stool and waited for my food. The cook cracked 5 eggs and added a milk, pepper, and salt splash before whisking them. A hand-sized ham steak was placed in a separate pan with bacon fat. It was not long before a plate of heaping scrambled eggs covering the thick ham steak was put in front of me. As I ate, the head cook asked, "You are one of the men from Castile's company?" "I am, but I have only been with them for a month," I replied after swallowing a mouthful. This was just my 5th week, which seemed impossible after all the shit I had been through. "How many mage companies are in the city?" I asked before shoveling another forkful of eggs in. Normally we have 20 or so mages and 500 legionaries in Eastern Legion Hall. Tomorrow morning, we are only cooking for 3 mages and 100 or so legionaries," the cook said while cutting the bread into small chunks to bake the rolls. "The Imperial Legion Hall has over 2,000 legionaries and gods knows how many mages. The Mage War College is not far from the Imperial Legion Hall and the Western Legion Hall," I asked, finishing my plate. The cook who made it took it away and left a steaming cup of tea in its place. The head cook slapped each piece of dough hard on a tray to get the shape she wanted, and then slid it into the oven. She then answered my question. "The Western Hall has maybe 2,000 legionaries as well, but a portion of those are in training and not true legionaries yet." I did not have time to talk further as Constantine walked into the kitchen. "Figures you found your way to a meal," he said with a light tone. "Eric, we are leaving soon. Gear up. Smart move getting breakfast." "We may not have time to eat all day," Constantine advised. The middle-aged cook addressed the scout. "Constantine, you old goat. There is a basket of hot meat buns warming in the oven." I had never seen Constantine get flustered before as the cook addressed him, but he was shaken as he looked at the cook and processed her words. "Gilda." Constantine showed familiarity with the cook. "What are you doing here?" "You know why I am here. Take the buns," the cook said with a slight smile and a wave of her hand. Constantine's eyes hardened slightly at his acquaintance and ordered, "Eric, get the buns into your space and get your armor on." He spun and left, shaking his head. I added a basket of 12 meat buns to my space and returned to our room. I dressed in my clean armor while the others waited in me. We left in the dark, and I had a chance to ask Constantine, old lover, Gilda. "God's mercy, never," Constantine rasped. "No, we both work for the same woman." He talked low enough so the others did not hear. "If Gilda is here, someone is not long for this world." Realizing he said that a little too loud, he gruffly walked ahead of me. So, the cook was an agent of the Praetorian Guard that Constantine worked for. She was probably an assassin, by his words. The pudgy woman did not look like a fighter. Knowing the agents could be anywhere was good, as I never would have suspected the cook. We returned to the magistrate building before the sun had broken the sky. The door between the statues had 2 legionaries in metal armor. Constantine noted, "They have the insignia of Duke Octavian. He must already be inside." We entered the building, and there were a number of men and women in the white robes of the magistrate walking the halls. The place was much busier than in the middle of the night. Constantine stopped and asked questions while we waited. When he returned, he told us what he had learned. The ducal tribunal will be in the Venus room. I have directions. They are still waiting on Duke Vito, so have not started. We followed Constantine to a corridor with a large double blue door. There was a mural painting taking up the entire opposite wall. The painting was lifelike and had a woman exiting the ocean's surf. She was naked with long, flowing dark blonde hair and mesmerizing sky-blue eyes that seemed to follow you. I was not the only one staring. "Why is this painting in the magistrate's building?" Benito asked. Constantine studied the image longer than he needed to. This building was not always the building for the imperial magistrates, and for training the Truthseekers. It served some other purpose in the past. A man in white robes overheard our conversation and informed us, "That is right, Legionnaire. This used to be the villa for Duke Luttrell when he stayed in the capital. He challenged the emperor and was beheaded, and all his property seized. This building became the magistrate's office. All of the amazing artwork has been preserved." He focused on Constantine. "Are you here for the ducal tribunal of Mage Castile?" Constantine nodded. "We gave statements last night to Truthseekers. We are here in case our statements are questioned, or further explanation is required." The man in white robes nodded in understanding. Only the accused, her advocate, the imperial Truthseeker, and the tribunal are allowed in the room. "If witnesses are requested, they will be summoned." Constantine ground his teeth. He was obviously frustrated at being helpless. A man in purple and gold robes walked down the center of the corridor. He was overweight and had an air of self-importance. The white-robed magistrate met him. "Duke Vito. This way, please." He opened the blue double door, and immediately, arguing voices spilled out of the room. The doors absorbed sound as the corridor had been silent before they opened. I only got a brief glimpse into the room. Castile was standing next to a man in yellow robes. Her back was to us, and she was facing a table with 3 seats. 2 seats were filled with Duke Octavian, and a young woman who I assumed was Duchess Veronica. The argument that was interrupted was between Octavian and the yellow-robed man. I assumed that was Castile's advocate. Nico, the old Truthseeker from last night, walked from a door inside the courtroom to join the proceedings. Duke Vito went to join the other 2 dukes. The white-robed man shut the blue doors behind Duke Vito, and we were cut off from the scene and all sound. The white-robed man then stood in front of the door like a guard. Constantine pulled us to the side. Benito asked, "What is the plan?" Constantine said, "We wait." He leaned against the painting of Venus. The white-robed man frowned, and Constantine stood away from the painting. It was almost an hour before Pavel asked, "What is going on inside?" Constantine started to answer, but the white-robed man surprisingly answered for him, "Happy to help. The charges will be read. Each charge will be dealt with one at a time. Each of the tribunal members will have a turn to ask questions of the accused. The Truthseeker will verify the answers of the defendant. Then, the advocate has a chance to ask the final questions. Then each tribunal member votes on the charge. "What about our statements?" Benito asked. Duke Octavian was questioning their addition to the formal records when the doors opened. The man had a slight smile. "Do not worry, legionaries. Justice is always based on the evidence presented." "What about the evidence not presented?" I muttered. The white-robed man focused on me. "You would make a good magistrate, legionary. Yes, missing evidence or questions not asked can lead to verdicts that are undeserved. Have no worries. Your mage has one of the best advocates in the hall." Duchess Veronica personally requested him. Another hour passed, and the blue doors did not open. "It seems to be taking a long time," Bentio stated to his rumbling stomach. "Hand out the buns," Constantine muttered to me. I produced the basket of buns, and we each took one. I offered one to the white-robed man, and he reluctantly accepted. Benito took possession of the basket, and slowly the buns were consumed. Hours passed, and even the magistrate guarding the door seemed to get fidgety. A man in blue robes, followed by 2 legionaries in metal armor, came down the corridor to our room. The man was slightly out of breath and addressed everyone. "This is the Tribunal for Mage Castile?" The white-robed man guarding the door answered, "It is. They are still in deliberation, Chancellor." He looked at us. "And you are her legionaries?" Constantine moved to stand before the blue-robed man. "We are. What does the Collegium Scholarium want with the Tribunal?" Constantine was both confused and hopeful. Truthseeker Yanis came to us this morning with a copy of a testimony. "We wish to interview any legionaries who were part of the storm giant slaying," he said, and all my fellow legion mates turned their eyes to me. The man, who I assumed was a chancellor, instantly said, "Ah, you must be Eric, the legionnaire who gave the original statement. Who else was with you when the mighty storm giant was defeated?" I looked to Constantine, who nodded. I was slightly nervous and answered truthfully. "Legionaries Brutus and Flavius are the only 2 others who have survived. Master Mage Sebastian took Flavius, Brutus in Carahagen. He missed the portal to the capital." Constantine stepped forward, intervening. "What does the College of Scholars want with the legionaries?" "Just to question them. Nothing nefarious. We will take this one," he pointed at me, "and you can send the others when they arrive." The man handed Constantine a wrapped scroll. Constantine unrolled it and looked up surprised. "The Emperor's seal." "The Emperor's seal." The blue-robed man bowed. "I am Marcel, counsel to the Emperor and Chancellor of the Collegium Scholarium. Truthseeker Yanis is my nephew. My time is precious to me, and I have already been to Eastern Legion Hall and back today." He wiped his forehead of sweat. "Go with him, Eric. When they finish with you, check here for us first and then the Legion Hall. I will want to talk with you as well," Constantine said with a note of curiosity. It did not feel like this was voluntary. The 2 legionaries in steel armor flanked me, and we all followed an excited Marcel out of the magistrate's hall. The Chancellor was a little too excited, in my opinion. I walked behind Marcel, who had a fast pace for a librarian. He smelled of sweet perfume as he pranced before us, and the crowded streets parted before him and his escort. We entered the main road that led to the Imperial Palace. The imposing palace approached rapidly as we followed the confident Chancellor. We reached a gate to the Imperial grounds. There were 4 legionaries here with shiny steel armor with gold highlights. I assumed these were the Imperial legionaries that served the Emperor directly. Chancellor Marcel did not pause and walked between the guards into the grounds. The legionaries saluted him with their right palm flat on their left collarbone. This was the Emperor's salute. Maybe it was because he was counsel to the Emperor. I was not going to ask. The fewer questions I asked of the man responsible for the College of Scholars, the better. Instead of heading to the palace, we took a blue-veined marble-paved path to the right through expansive and diverse flowering gardens. The kaleidoscope of colors passed rapidly as we got deeper into the Imperial District. I was starting to get nervous but maintained pace. There was a class of 9 young children in the gardens. A bald man in blue robes was giving an explanation of one of the flowering trees. He was telling them where the tree normally grew on the continent, and that was all I caught as we were past the class. We reached a series of modest homes on the other side of the vast gardens. Each home was made of plain gray granite and had a small personal garden out front. Short, white marble stones marked off the garden. Marcel walked up the steps, and I followed. The 2 Legionnaire escorts turned and walked away. I paused to watch them. Marcel also stopped and explained, "I only have an escort when I leave the grounds. If they thought you were a threat, they would have remained. Come inside. My wife should have lunch ready." Inside the stone dwelling, large windows dominated the walls, giving it lots of natural light. The spacious room was both a kitchen and dining room. A woman who appeared much older than Marcel smiled. "Ah, I see you found the boy you were looking for. Damn near had to be Mercury zipping all across the city." Marcel griped to the woman as he sat heavily at the table. "You need to get out more anyway, Marcel. Sit, and we can eat. I am Sophia. I assume you are Legionnaire Eric." She smiled as she placed a pot on the table. A tray of flat oval bread was soon added to the table. "Help yourself, Eric. Consider my cooking payment for your knowledge. Don't be bought so cheaply, Eric. Knowledge is more valuable than gold. Although Sophia's cooking is as well," Marcel said, smiling at his wife. He took a piece of bread and then scooped a healthy portion of thick sauce with cubed meat and vegetables. I followed his example. Sophia poured wine for everyone and then joined us. The whole friendly atmosphere was a little surprising, Marcel asked as he ate. "I read the report Yanis submitted for the trial. What do you remember about the storm giant?" I chewed and swallowed and made a satisfied groan at the taste to earn a smile from Sophia's. "He was big, maybe the height of 5 men. Much quicker than you would expect," I answered. "No, what was he wearing? What did he say?" Marcel asked with interest, studying me. "I do not think he said anything. Mage Durandus just attacked him," I replied and continued taking bites, waiting for questions. Marcel frowned. "That is unfortunate. Storm giants are one of the few reasonable giants. How old was he?" "I am sorry you are asking things I have no knowledge of. He had a beard that was light brown, if that helps," I answered and tried the wine. "It was flavorful but slightly acidic. I am sorry. I will try and direct my questions based on your background. Your accent, are you from Linshania?" He did not wait for an answer before adding, "The length of their beard usually determines a storm giant's age. They would have certain color beads in it for their life's accomplishments." "I am not from Linshania," I said carefully. I was slightly worried Marcel may have the Truthseeker ability, so I planned not to offer any information. "The giant's beard came to his waist," I remembered. "He did have beads in his beard, but I cannot recall the details. We left the body in the crater. I am sure the beads are still there. Yes, yes." He nodded. "Waist at least a few centuries old then." He sucked on his teeth, considering. "We are considering an expedition, but with the Barteradians so close, it will take time to pull it together. Now, what about the city below the swamp? We did not see it. Just Durandus saw it with his magic. He told me it was a city for the giants, but his power was not strong enough to explore it," I replied, and started eating again, hoping he had forgotten his line of questioning about where I was from. Marcel went into another room and came back with a long rolled-up parchment. Sophia rolled her eyes at his excitement, but cleared the table as he unrolled the map. He unrolled the map, and it looked like the Telhian Empire. Marcel eagerly said, "Now, where was the giant digging?" "It took me time to find Maksha and the roads we patrolled. I guessed on a spot off the road. Here. Or about here. Or about here." They both looked at it, and it was Sophia who spoke. "It could be the city was submerged and silt built up over time. Look, mountains surround the swamp, making it a perfect bowl," Sophia commented. Marcel grumbled that he had not noticed first. "Never marry anyone smarter than you, Eric. Not only will she always point out your mistakes, but she solves riddles before you." He studied the map. "That does fit with the myth of the city of the Titans. Atlantium, being buried by a great flood." "Titans?" I asked, confused. "The giants," Marcel answered distractedly, studying the map. "Before elves, dwarves, humans, and orcs, the giants ruled all of Dizia. They had one great city that was lost when they challenged the gods." Sophia chuckled. "He tries to romanticize it. The giant races ruled over all the others. It was not the gods, but a great war among the storm. Frost, fire, and cloud giants decimated their populations. They are just like us smaller folk, but only bigger, she chuckled. Marcel griped. That is simplifying the history, Sophia. He turned to me. The giants destroyed all their cities in the war. Only the capital, the greatest city in all of Dizia, Atlantium, remained. The myth goes all the other giant clans banded together against the storm giants. Having lost the war, the storm giants were exiled from the capital city. In retribution, the remaining storm giants summoned a massive and fierce storm that drowned all the other giant races in Atlantium. Sophia added, Marcel believes powerful artifice items were buried with the city. He has been searching for it his entire life. He told all of the children he has ever educated in the Scholarium the tale, hoping one day one of them will help find it for him. Well, it worked. Yanis found him. He pointed at me, not taking his eyes off the map. Sophia shook her head and sipped her wine. Marcel kept trying to dig details out of me, but I had very little to offer him. But I answered honestly. After patiently answering all his questions for 2 hours, and through 2 more helpings of stew and 4 glasses of wine, I eventually got bold enough to ask, Chancellor Marcel, is there anything you can do to help Mage Castile with the Ducal Tribunal? Ducal tribunals are always political, and I do not become involved in politics. Sophia nodded at Marcel's statement. I decided not to press further and answered his questions as he ferreted everything he could from my memory. He finally stood, Legionnaire Eric, thank you for your time. You enjoyed the wine, so Sophia, why do you not give him a bottle? As he walked me out, he explained, at the bottom of the steps, wait for an Imperial Legionnaire to escort you off the grounds. They do not take kindly to strangers wandering the grounds. He clasped his wrists to mine in a handshake and handed me the bottle of wine. Is that accent from Gongshuia? I had hoped he had forgotten about my accent. I did not get the feeling he had the Truthseeker ability during the questioning. I supplied to ease his curiosity. I am from a tiny village in Singa. I joined a caravan transporting Tastewood, made the mistake of sleeping in the wrong place, and found myself conscripted. He nodded. Ah, yes. I can hear it in the undertones. Must be the eastern provinces of Singa, he deduced. I nodded, agreeing with him. Well, if we have a chance to talk again, I would love to hear your impressions of how the Telhian Empire is perceived further afield. My primary service to the Empire is researching the political climate in all of Dizia and advising the Emperor. I almost told Marcel I was just an uneducated villager, but held back and nodded. Thank your wife for the wonderful meal. I turned, and 2 Imperial legionaries were waiting for me at the end of the walkway. I was a little spooked as they had not been close a few seconds ago. Instead of walking me through the gardens, they walked me to a closer access point to the Imperial grounds. 4 Imperial legionaries guarded this small door in the wall. I was pushed out into the streets, and the door was barred behind me. It kind of felt like I was the trash being thrown out. I was in the upper city on a side street. I followed the Imperial compound wall back to the main street. From there, I was able to get myself back to the Magistratus Hall. Out of sight of anyone, I moved the bottle of wine into my storage as I walked the halls to the Venus room. When I arrived, the double blue doors were open. The hallway and room were empty. I was stunned for a moment before finding a white-robed magistrate. Is the tribunal finished in the Venus room? He nodded immediately. About an hour ago. The Dukes left the building. He was going to keep going, but I stopped him, holding his arm. He looked at me, waiting patiently. What was the decision? He looked confused. I believe the mage was found guilty. He sized up my appearance and clean-cut face. I can bring you to records if you want to know the specifics. Please do. I nodded with a pit in my stomach. I was sure Constantine would have the details as well. I followed the magistrate through the building and into the basement, where a sprawling library was located. Dozens of white and yellow robes individuals weaved through the shelves of books and scrolls. My guide stopped a white-robed young man, and he rushed off. I will leave you here. Magistrate Marcus went to retrieve the records. He will help you, Legionnaire. He bowed and left. The young Marcus returned a short while later with a scroll. He handed it to me. Please be careful with it. It has not yet been transcribed into the histories. I unfurled the scroll and read it. Ducal Tribunal of Mage Castile Duval sitting dukes, Duke Vito of Kamamia Province, Duchess Victoria of Sobra Province, Duke Octavian of Satagos, Province Charge 1 brought by Duke Octavian, retreating from the field of battle. Vote, guilty 3, 0 punishment. 10 years of additional service without annual wage from the Emperor. Charge 2 brought by Duke Octavian. Willful neglect of Empire resources. Vote, not guilty, 2-1 Charge 3, brought by Duke Octavian. Conspiracy to the death of Mage Gregor. Vote, not guilty, 2-1 Charge 4, brought by Duchess Victoria. Conspiracy to the death of Master Mage Durandus. Vote, not guilty, 3-0, Charge 5, brought by Duke Octavian. Conspiracy to the death of Displacement Mage Santino. Vote, not guilty, 2-1 Charge 6, brought by Duchess Victoria. Improperly holding a tribunal of Mage Durandus' death. Vote, not guilty, 3-0. I read the document twice. And Marcus asked, "This is the summary. I can gather the related documents if you wish, Legionnaire." No. I rolled up the scroll with the Imperial seal on it. Where is Mage Castile then? I had actually thought when I heard she was guilty, she would be executed. Marcus turned and found someone I recognized as having stood guard on the door. He went and asked him and then returned. Marcus informed me. Mage Castile left with her legionaries at the tribunal's conclusion. Thank you, Marcus. I turned and found my way out of the maze-like building. I was soon in the streets and heading toward the Eastern Legion Hall. The capital city of Telha was easy to navigate from the main road. I started the long walk back to the Legion Hall. It was late afternoon, and the streets were packed. Someone bumped me and searched inside my hardened leather chest armor for a coin purse. The hand was gone before I could grab it, and I had no idea who the hand belonged to in the dense crowd. It did not matter. All my possessions were in my dimensional storage, and my short sword and dagger were at Legion Hall. My stomach was stuffed, and I was coming down from the minor buzz of the wine. I slowed as I thought about finding the Adventurer's Hall. There's a lot of gold waiting for me there. I decided against it. If Constantine found out I went before checking in, he would probably lay into me. I paused as I passed a tailor. I was halfway to the Legion Hall, so I was far away from the more expensive shops near the palace and upper city. There were only a few patrons inside when I walked in. It looked like the shop catered only to men. I entered, and no one came to help me, so I walked among the shelves, browsing. They sold a mixture of new and used garments in a massive array of designs and colors. I found cotton clothes for the first time. Everything I had seen so far had been wool, linen, or a heavy linen that was called canvas. This material was definitely cotton. One of the men in the store approached me. "Legionnaire, can I help you?" He was middle-aged and balding and wore a fake salesman smile. "Is this cotton?" He replied with the Latin word for cotton, and then went into a salesman diatribe about where it was produced and imported from. All I got from his lengthy explanation was that cotton was not grown in the Empire and would cost me a lot. I understood without industrialization. Clothing was much more labor-intensive to produce. I am newly assigned to the capital. Can you help me put together 2 sets of clothing for wearing in the upper city? I do not want to feel or look out of place, I asked politely. The man looked me up and down in an assessment. You are quite large. Come into the back room and remove your armor so we can try a few things. Do you want new apparel, or is used manageable? I guessed he was judging my ability to pay. I did not want to come off as wealthy, even though I had a large amount of gold and silver. Probably used, but just bring me whatever you think may fit my frame. He showed me to the back room, which was not private. A short middle-aged man with a pot belly was trying on clothes. A father was working with his preteen son to find clothes as well. I removed my armor and my top, revealing my muscled torso. My tailor arrived with a load of used shirts to start. I noticed the pot-bellied man comparing my physique to his, clearly envious. The shirts were mostly too tight. I soon found a deep blue wool shirt that had been mended many times that fit well and smelled clean. The Aino wool, Legionnaire. The finest hairs from a Tigirosian sheep. As you can see, this piece has been mended a few times. You seem to like it. 2 silver. I felt the long-sleeved shirt again. It was nice, and if I wore a jacket over, it would cover the repairs. 1.5. He looked a little upset but nodded. I bought 3 new snug black cotton shirts for 5 silver each, which made him quite happy. I learned unlike used clothes, new clothes prices were not negotiable. The cotton material was thick, and they were all long-sleeved. The next piece to purchase was the pants. He had some thicker cotton pants, something close to denim. They fit like sweatpants with no pockets, slightly loose and requiring a belt. The problem was the colors were atrocious. Purple, red, and orange seemed to be in fashion for the wealthy. I found 1 black pair, but my muscled thighs were too tight in the pair. It was a shame we had to move to new pairs because the older pairs had already been broken in and were softer, but at least I had a color choice. In my size, my color choices were red, dark brown, or an undyed off-white. I got the 2 pairs of dark brown pants for 25 silver each, which was cheaper than the brighter dyed pants. Socks were easy as they came in 3 sizes, and I was the largest size. I got 10 pairs of wool socks, 5 dyed black and 5 dark blue. I had 10 pairs of legionary wool socks in my dimensional space, but I wanted to disassociate myself from wearing legion markers when I explored the city. All legion stockings were off-white and may be noticeable to those with a keen eye. Plus, you could never have too many socks. Belts were just a silver each, but I had a number already in my space, and some were not legion belts. I still bought 2 dark brown belts. The jacket was next, and it took some time for him to bring out his selection of inventory. He had a large number of used jackets. I wanted something used, and found something close to my legion oversized oiled canvas duster made to over my armor. The used jacket was mostly black leather with a dark green cotton lining. It had a few interior pockets as well, and one looked to be for a knife. It was broken in but still in excellent condition, and he wanted 2 gold for it. I talked him down to 180 silver. The last piece in the ensemble was boots. My legion boots were broken in already but easily recognizable. He did not have much in stock as he was not a cobbler. I found some dark brown riding boots in his meager offerings that fit a little loose, but they were broken in and only 50 silver because he had them for so long. Just not a lot of men with my size feet. Good boots were normally very expensive. My total invoice was just over 3 gold. That was over half a year's legion pay for me, but I still had 13 gold coins from the dungeon. For the quality of the clothing, I thought it was worth it. It was comfortable, and I should be able to blend in with the myriad of fashions I had seen on the streets of the capital. It also lacked any bright colors the wealthier people seemed to like, as I did not want to draw attention to myself. I paid the happy man, and he bundled everything together. After I left the tailor, I turned into an alley to be unseen and moved the package to my dimensional space. I hope to have time to explore the city as a well-off civilian and not as a legionnaire. As I approached the Legion Hall, I thought maybe I should get Castile something. Congratulations, you are not going to be executed gift. I stopped at a bakery and pastry shop and got a basket of various doughy sweets for a silver. That was a lot of coin for 9 pastries, so I assumed they were good. When I returned, the Eastern Legion Hall was not very active in the evening. A few men practiced in the central courtyard, but fewer men lounged about like yesterday. I went to the bunk room where we slept last night and found Pavel and Benito lying in the beds. Guess it went all right? I said, entering. Pavel sat up. Castile is in the private room at the end of the hall. She is sleeping but said to send you in if you returned. Constantine and Linus are checking to see when the next portal to Karanagan will be opened. He remembered where I went. How was the Chancellor? Did you meet the Emperor? We just went and ate lunch at his house with his wife. He asked questions about ruins, and I answered him as best I could. I made the mistake of putting the basket down. Benito snatched and took a sticky bun inside. I should have noticed him eyeing it as the smell of the warm pastries filled the room. I actually got those for Castile, Benito. He ignored me and handed the basket to Pavel. Pavel said, "Well, we all rushed here to save her, so I am sure she would want us to have 1 or 2 or 3. I just shrugged. Fine. Save some for Constantine and Linus then." Benito was already on his second, and I doubted any would be left when Constantine returned. I turned away and went to look for Castile. From my exploration, I knew where the private mage rooms were located. I knocked on a few, and no one answered. Finally, Castile opened her door. It was 2 back, so she must have gotten up slowly. She looked haggard and tired. Her hair was a mess. She recognized me. "Eric, Is Constantine back? No, Pavel and Benito said you wanted to see me when I returned, I said. She's studied me. You look well for having raced across the empire. You even shaved. She tried to make it sound complimentary. She had not bathed and still had on the same clothes from when we fled Maka. She sat on the bed while I remained standing. She was quiet, so I opened. I am glad you escaped the tribunal. She barked a harsh laugh. Escaped? From one spider web to another. Duchess Veronica may have saved me from Octavian's planned fate, but now I owe her favors. Better than being dead and you were only found guilty on one count, I offered, trying to be positive. She grunted. Yes, the Duchess could not worm me out of that one. She did manage to reduce the penalty from life of servitude to just 10 years. She looked me in the eyes and explained. The magistrates review all judgments. They can send it to the Emperor for review if they find something not in line with the evidence the Truthseekers gave. The Duchess could not challenge the facts on that charge, but the evidence confirmed by the Truthseekers also allowed her to manage the facts for Duke Vito on the other charges. I would not be surprised if she owes Duke Vito a few favors for his votes. Octavian was definitely livid at how Vito voted. I was not sure if I was overstepping by asking, but I did. Why did the Duchess take such an interest in you? Castilla looked like she had aged in the last few days. Duchess Veronica is one of the Emperor's granddaughters. I do not know the lineage, 2 or 3 generations, I am guessing. When she was educated in the palace, the Emperor favored her as a child and carved out a province for her to rule when her father named her a first citizen and paid her tithe. It is a tiny province with one small city. I guess she has higher aspirations than ruling the smallest and weakest province in the empire. So Octavian is her uncle? I asked. All of the dukes are related in some manner. Castile stood off the bed. Enough of my fate, Eric. Now you. She eyed me. I do not know if you are an outworlder. If you are, never tell me. Better yet, give me a false narrative so if a powerful truth-seeker questions me, I will not have the answers they seek. I nodded, relieved. I am from Singa, really. How'd you get here? Why were you naked in the farmer's barn? Why would you come to the Telhian Empire and not speak the language? I read your transfer card from Commander Silas, Eric, when you were assigned to me. It reads like you fell out of the sky. Seeing the worry on my face, she smiled. Do not worry, Eric. The only things sent to Imperial Legion Hall were your tablet scores and a few pieces of fabric with your blood. Your background information only came to me. Commander Silas is an idiot, and only cared about what bonus you earned him for imprinting your spell form. Blood. Why would they need my blood? I said. But I already had an idea. I remember the first weeks of training. The trainers had taken our bloody and torn shirts and given us new ones. After that, we were shown how to repair our clothes. It is for magical tracking. Only those who graduate into the Legion of Lion are registered in the capital in case of betrayal. After 2,000 years, the Empire learned to be prepared to respond and hunt down traitors. It is why all the children of the nobility are educated at the palace under the Emperor's teachers. Castile paused and let me realize the scope and my own predicament. If they think I am dead, would they destroy the bloody clothes? I asked. If they were only that organized. The Legion hounds maintain the archive in the capital. They probably have tens of thousands of samples from the last 1,000 years. Not just legionaries, but every mage as well. We have it worse than you, though. There are backup archives for just mages and nobles hidden elsewhere in the Empire. We are truly bound to the Empire, Castile explained. I was angry and felt a little helpless. Are you telling me this? I finally asked. Castile let a smile creep onto her face, because I think we can help each other. Castile's smile faded. It is about survival, Eric. In that way, I lost the Tribunal. 10 more years without being able to draw replacements over the company minimum. As a mage commander, I have built a loyal following and developed competent men. I was confused. I thought you were just not being paid. Castile laughed without holding back. No, I am being cut off from all resources. No replenishing my ranks beyond the minimum size for a company. No annual payout for service, and my existing accounts have been seized. No purchasing of potions from the Imperial alchemists at the discounted mage company rate. I am sure my new benefactor, Duchess Veronica, has a plan that will bind me to her. Castile pointed to a sealed letter on the desk. I will find out her plan for me when I open that. I looked at the letter and then back to Castile. So, what do you want from me? I asked. I want you to be invested in everyone's survival, she said levelly. Before I could protest, she continued. I do not need to know your secrets. In fact, it is better that I do not. Being around me is dangerous. I doubt Duke Octavian is finished with me, but he should be content that I am trapped for another 10 years, giving him time to exact revenge. I thought about it. Is the blood tracking real? Can we not just leave the Empire? Seek sanctuary in another kingdom? Castile sighed and huffed resignedly. The hounds always find you. She looked me in the eyes. A legionnaire like you could probably flee. They would not pursue you far outside the borders. I could not say for sure. Maybe they would send a phantasm to hunt you or try to track you with agents in other kingdoms. Myself, they would track me no matter where I went to make an example of me. Castile noticed me processing. Yes, you could flee. But if you are an outworlder, like I believe, you are not prepared. I can help prepare you. If your tablet reading is correct, you cannot learn true magic. Your shaping attribute is too abysmal. But maybe you have other spell forms beyond healing and space you need help imprinting. I will help you with that. I was thinking, and Castile decided to wait for me to process. Castile picked up the letter and started to open it. As she read with her eyes focused on the parchment, she spoke to me. If you imprinted self-healing, then I am assuming your second most powerful affinity of time can receive a spell form. Do you want help with that? I was silent and considering her offer as she read the letter, and a look of distaste formed on her visage, as if she had bitten into something sour. Why is my poor shaping preventing me from learning true magic? I asked after she put down the letter. Damien had explained it, but I wanted further clarification from a true mage. Castile was distracted for a moment, but decided to demonstrate. She put her hands about 12 inches apart, and a blue light started to trace out what I recognized as a spell form. It was slow and deliberate. This is the speed someone with a 10 in shaping can mold their aether into runic script. She spent about 5 minutes tracing the lines in the air between her hands. You also need to keep ether running through it at the same time as it will dissipate if not, she explained. The spell form finished. She dropped it, and the entire thing quickly vanished. So I could cast spells then, and it would just take a long time, I asked. She smirked like I had fallen for the punchline in a joke. That was one of 4 spell forms for a spell. Now watch as I cast the spell with all 4 forms and a 66 attribute in either shaping. Light flared between her hands in a blink, and the smoky tendrils I was familiar with oozed from her fingers. She looked at me. All magic affinities and traits are exponential. Each step of 10 is twice as powerful as the last. 20 is twice as strong as 10, and 30 is 4 times as strong as 10. I stopped her. I am already aware of this. I did not know it also extended to the 5 magic attributes on the tablet, though. The small woman stood and walked to get water from a pitcher. Remind me of your magic attributes. Aether pool 14th, channeling 14, shaping 8, tolerance 22, resistance 5, I said from memory. Do you have a tablet in your space that is higher than I remember, closer to your potentials? She asked curiously. I shook my head no. I got a reading in a city after we escorted the first citizen. She nodded at my explanation. She took out a quill and paper. Write them out for me with your potentials then. It will make things go quicker. I wrote them out, and she reviewed the sheet before continuing her teaching. So your aether pool is small. Usually, anyone with any of the magic affinities is going to have a potential of at least 10. If you continue using your ether and maximize your pool to 22, your available aether should more than double, going from 14 to 22. What does the potential of 55 in channeling and 50 in tolerance mean? I asked Castile. Channeling is how fast you can replenish the either in your core. There are exercises to help you train that, but it also happens naturally, Castile said to my nods. Damien had given me a very simple meditation technique. We can work on those in the future. She tapped aether tolerance on the paper. Your ether tolerance is how much ether you can channel in a day. Your maximum potential is actually quite impressive. If you reached 50 in the attribute, It means you can channel 16 times your total ether core in a day without burning your channels, Castile explained. When we fled along the aqueduct, I was pushing the extreme limit of my 33 in ether tolerance. If you exceed your tolerance, you can reduce your ether pool permanently. When that happens, channeling any ether becomes painful. Magas who do this are referred to as burnt. Is there a way to know if I am getting close to my limit? You just know. It feels like your blood is boiling, and your head is about to explode. It is your body's way of telling you to stop, Castile educated me. An ether resistance, I asked about the last attribute. It is a person's natural resistance to magical influences and backlash. For instance, when a mage tries to use a charm spell on you, they need to have an illusion affinity about 30 points higher than the target's ether resistance to succeed, she noted. A normal person's potential is between 10 and 30, but most people never train their ether resistance, and it is less than 5, she asked. Have you tried to move a living creature into your dimensional storage? I nodded, but did not offer that I had succeeded. Castile explained, then you already know about backlash. When a creature resists an imprinted spell form, it reflects back on your ether core. Backlash does not happen when you use a true spell, as it is not anchored on your core. You were probably slightly ill or lightheaded for a few hours from the backlash. I thought carefully and said, I have moved a live rat into my dimensional space before, but 2 rats. I let the question hang. So you must have a space affinity in the 60s to be able to move a small creature with a small ether resistance. That is actually quite impressive and makes me wonder how big you are. She smirked before continuing. But yes, 2 creatures at once is exponentially more difficult as their resistance is multiplicative. Curious, she looked at me. I would ask your space affinity, but it is better that I do not know. I could see the burning desire to know in her eyes, though. I was still thinking, and Castile asked, So, do you want help learning a spell form for the time affinity? No, I started. Castile looked surprised and a little hurt. I actually want to learn a spell form for protection first. I pulled the spell form reference book from my dimensional space. Her eyebrows arched, but she did not seem surprised. She took the book from me and noted, Volume 2. She paged through it, and then looked up. And what spell form did you decide on? My protection affinity is 30. Castile's eyebrows went up, but she did not offer a comment. I had just revealed that my time affinity was at least 30. I decided to be funny. I think I want to imprint the protection from the elements. If I choose either of the other 2, then my mage commander will send me into more dangerous situations. Castile read them quickly, and then smiled at my joke. I added, I really want to know if there are other options for me to imprint. Castile was patient as she reread the text. Etheric armor is a common magic item used by mages. They are expensive, but extremely useful. She reached into her shirt from the top and produced a fist-sized amulet. This is a similar artifact. It can repel 3 or 4 strikes before being drained. The problem is it takes a lot of ether and some time to recharge. She paged through the book again. These are definitely the spell forms to maximize your protection affinity of 30. Wind Barrier has the most utility in and out of combat utility, but the strength of the barrier is related to your protection affinity. So it is like my dimensional pocket? My higher affinity made it a larger pocket, I asked, as Castile already knew my space was larger than advertised. Exactly. Wind Barrier can be used as a shield in combat, a way to block a passage in combat, or even a platform to stand on momentarily. Even though the barrier is not strong, you could cast many of them as layers until you ran out of ether. Etheric armor would drain your ether directly, and you could run out rapidly, Castile explained. The wind barrier also only lasts about 10 heartbeats, according to the text. So, do you think protection from the elements is not the correct choice? I asked for her honest opinion. It is not a bad choice, but you realize that if you use the ability openly, you are displaying your spell form for all to see. With protection from the elements, rain will never touch your body, and you will not sweat in extreme heat. Even your hair would not be tousled in the wind. Etheric armor is the same as blue sparks would flash when you are struck. Only wind barrier would leave no trace and be invisible, she said, offering her educated opinion. And if I was not concerned about showing my spell form, Which of these three would you choose? I asked again. If I was not in the Legion, definitely protection from the elements. In the Legion, wind barrier. With ether shield, I would be too worried about having my ether drained involuntarily by repeated attacks. I would get an amulet instead. Also, if you are a battlefield and flashing blue sparks, you quickly become a target of the enemy as well. She explained her reasoning. I considered her reasoning, and it made sense. Only if I was not going to be fighting, then the protection from the elements made sense. I considered showing Castile my amulet, but thought I might be able to get it identified in the city on my own. Complete trust was going to be baby steps. Okay, I would like help with wind barrier. Castile smiled since I took her advice. She started by showing me a few exercises to work on improving my channeling. Castile had more knowledge and better understanding than Damien. She fine-tuned my visualization for meditation and showed me how to cycle ether in my core to draw in aether faster. Then, she gave me a few hints on imprinting the wind barrier spell form. We spent nearly 3 hours together in her room. I need to bathe, eat, and sleep, Castile said as the sun had set. Tell Constantine I will talk to him in the morning about when the rest of the company will arrive. Thank you, Castile. Even though I cannot cast a true spell, maybe you can show me how to write out the spell forms in the air, I asked hopefully. Castile studied me, if we have time. It would take you years to learn with your attribute, Eric. It is much harder than I have shown it to be. She sighed. But yes, I can teach you. I felt good about my situation as I returned to the bunk room. As I entered, Constantine, Pavel, Bentio, and Linus looked at me. Constantine started to get up and I said, Castile said she would talk with you tomorrow. She is going to bathe and rest up as she is exhausted. They all looked at each other. What did they think happened? Benito had bet the others that Castile and I had an intimate evening together. Constantine had not been part of the bet, but by the look on his face I needed to give him an explanation, since they would see my wind barriers eventually. I went with that. Castile was helping me to learn a new spell form. She was also showing me how to replenish my ether faster as well. Benito's mouth hung open, looking at me like I had betrayed him. He slowly handed a silver coin to Pavel, and then to Benito. Now that the awkwardness had passed, Constantine took charge of the situation. Get some sleep. We will go and get our gold from the Adventurers Guild in the morning. I lay down and quickly fell asleep. My dreams were marred by nightmares of having to defend the walls of Maka from an army of storm giants, and then being enslaved by them to dig out their lost city in the swamps. I tossed and turned most of the night, waking numerous times, but the dream remained the same. In the morning, Constantine, who had long been up, directed us all to suit up and wait in a small private dining room. Castile joined us, cleaned and looking healthier. Constantine brought up breakfast from the kitchens. They were similar to the stuffed rolls we had yesterday, but had different spices today. We had a chilled berry wine with almost no alcohol in it. We consumed the food in silence. After we finished, everyone was waiting for either Constantine or Castile to speak. Benito, the idiot he was, asked, Mage Castile, are you teaching Eric a new spell? Castile's eyebrows arched, and she looked at me. Benito was still sore at losing 2 silver. Castile offered a tight smile. He is working a new spell form, not a new spell. Only mages can cast spells. Benito deflated as Castile confirmed my story, and his silver was lost. Constantine spoke. The others will be here from Karenhagen in 2 days. We are all going to the Adventurers Guild this morning to collect our coin. He looked at us. I suggest you get your coin and transfer it to your family or deposit it in the Imperial Reserve. You do not want to walk around the city with that much gold. Castile tapped her fingers softly on the table, thinking before she spoke. I have received our next assignment. We are going to be guarding a team surveying the Duchess Victoria's lands in the Sobral province. It is a 6-month assignment. Constantine paused his drink to his lips. His eyes looked like he expected this, but his voice had confusion in it. The province is less than 1,000 square miles. Why so long? Castile shook her head. The Duchess's province is new, and she wants to make sure the borders are clearly marked. A white marble stone will be anchored every 100 yards along her border. Benito pipped up. Well, that sounds like a great assignment. We just need to guard a bunch of wagons full of stones? Constantine looked at Castile, who did not look happy. I am guessing we are going to be the ones digging the holes. Constantine noted to Castile's dismayed nods. Castile explained, from what I understand, the Duchess's province is mostly useless. She has just one city on the Agantarao River, a few dozen farms, and some small lumber camps. Most of her lands are wild. I do not know the threat level of the creatures, but the main concern will be from the other dukes, not liking where the markers are being placed. Constantine nodded, finished his cup and said seriously, land disputes are never fun, especially at the ducal level. Do we at least have an imperial surveyor with us? Castile thought for a moment and then pulled the letter from inside her cloak and read it. It just says to meet the surveyor in Sobral City. My guess is there will be no imperial surveyor, Constantine grunted. I suggest we double up on supplies then. Castile grimaced. My imperial reserve accounts have been seized to cover the Empire's losses in Masha from our early retreat. Also, I can no longer draw reinforcements for the company for 10 years, unless I fall below the minimum company strength of 12. Constantine barked. Well, that is dragon shit. We are not a displacement mage company. Do we need to buy our own replacement gear? His anger was rising, and veins stood out on his neck. Castile nodded slowly. Old gear can be exchanged at no cost, but new gear will be charged to your legionnaire debt. She exhaled slowly. Do not worry. I still have the gold from the dungeon discovery and will cover new gear. And I can purchase healing potions from the guild, Benito asked. I thought the Adventurers Guild does not operate in the Empire? Castile shrugged. They have a few halls in the larger cities or near dungeons, but generally the Empire will send out the hounds, or a mage company for monster threats. Still, the Adventurers Guild is the expert on dungeons. The Emperor allows them for that reason to siphon off essences and artifacts from their efforts in a dungeon, rather than risk his forces inside dungeons, Constantine added. There is also the Guild War. About 1,000 years ago, the Empire tried to throw the Adventurers Guild out of the Telhian Empire. The adventurers banded together and joined the Empire's enemies. Only after losing half of its territory did the Emperor agree to allow the Adventurers Guild back with the stipulation they never attack the Empire again. The Empire had to concede the monitoring and management of dungeons within its territory to the Guild as part of the treaty. Castile added, the Empire does keep tight control of the essences and artifacts coming out of dungeons. The only place to sell them is in an adventurer's hall. Then the Empire will usually swoop in and purchase them. Castile stood enough discussion. We need to prepare for the company's arrival and a river voyage to the Sobral province. We followed Castile to the street and formed a protective box around her, as Constantine led us to the adventurer's hall. The civilians moved out of our way, just not as enthusiastically as they had when I walked with the Chancellor yesterday. The Adventurers' Hall was a single-story building in the lower city near the southern gate, about as far from the palace as you could get, and still be within the city walls. When we entered the room, it reminded me of a legion hall, minus the legionaries. A number of men and a few women sat eating and drinking or playing table games. They did not look happy to see us. Castile stepped forward and went to the counter. Mage Commander Castile here to collect the discovery reward for a dungeon. The man behind the desk was grizzled with massive forearms and made a show of slowly pulling a large book and slowly paging through it. He looked up at Castile. 1705 gold and 88 silver and 14 copper. He motioned for a man sitting in the common room. The man left his drink to join us. The man was clean-shaven and introduced himself. I am Guildmaster Icarus. I have the truth spell. If you will confirm that you are, in fact, Mage Commander Castile Duval. I am, Castile said sharply. After her experience with the Imperial Truthseekers, I guessed she had no love for any of their ilk. The grizzled man received a nod from the Guildmaster. It will take a moment to create your voucher. Constantine went forward to repeat the process, and instead of creating a voucher, the Guildmaster counted out 7 large gold, 5 small gold, and 68 silver coins for Constantine. The smaller amount was more manageable to pay out directly. I was next in line and confirmed my name as Eric Marco. I received the same amount of coin as Constantine. I put it into a pouch, then under my armor, and then moved it into my dimensional storage. Constantine noticed, and I think he thought about giving me his coin but held it. The men and women in the hall were taking too much interest in the exchange at the counter. When everyone had their coin, the man came out of the back with a stamped bar. Castile took and led us out of the hall. On exiting the hall, Duke Octavian and 4 of his legionaries were waiting for us. He had a smile on his face. Mage Castile. So interesting to see you in the lower city, and at the Adventurers' Hall, no less. I heard this amazing tale from First Citizen Justin Cicero just the other day. You had discovered a new dungeon. That is remarkable. I hope you are not planning to hold onto the reward gold. Your release was contingent on all funds being seized. Even behind Castile, I could feel the fury oozing off her. The Duke motioned one of his men forward, and they took the stamped bar from her hand. They handed the bar to the Duke, and he inspected it and frowned. "Where's the rest of it?" A voice from behind us had the Duke look up. "That is all the coin she received after your empire taxes, Duke Octavian." It was the Guildmaster Icarus. The Duke narrowed his eyes at the Guildmaster. He then looked at each of us, and realization spread that Castile had divided the spoils among her men. We remained next to Castile in support as the Duke fumed. The Duke turned abruptly and left with his legionaries. Constantine muttered. "What a pixie prick," Benito asked. "So, does this mean we will not receive our weekly pay?" Castile snapped. "You can collect it in the Legion Hall, Benito. That is where I will be." She walked off alone. Constantine looked at Benito. "You need to learn when to keep that thing shut. It is only good for eating and pleasuring your woman." Castile paid you extra coin on top of your Legion pay from her own pockets. You will get your 5 silver, 40 coppers weekly. Benito looked a bit flustered and eventually moved off with Pavel and Linus to care for his coin. I was left with Constantine. "Eric, I am headed to the Merchant's Hall to send these funds to family. You are welcome to join me." Constantine waited on me. "Do they have tablet readers in the Adventurers Guild?" I asked, looking back at the building. Constantine looked at me, probably. Never been in one for more than a moment before. "You would probably have to join the guild, though." "I can do that, even being a legionnaire," I asked Constantine. "There is no law against it. A number of legionaries join after they finish their term." Constantine studied me as I thought. I slowly turned and walked back into the building. When I entered the Adventurers Guild, I was the focus of attention again. There was a pause in conversation as distrustful eyes focused on the lone legionnaire. Guildmaster Icarus stood and approached me. "Legionnaire, is there something else I can help you with? I was wondering if you have a tablet reader I can rent." "In private?" I asked hopefully. The man considered my request by looking me up and down, judging me. "We do have a tablet, but only members can use it. The cost is 1 silver for attributes and 10 silver for affinities. But you need to be a guild member to rent them," he answered. That was much less than the gold I had paid in the city of Varvo. "Are they private?" I asked again. "Yes, the room is spelled to avoid scrying," he said, nodding. And I could tell his patience was wearing thin. "Excellent. I would like to get a membership then and rent both tablets," I replied. His eyebrows showed surprise. Icarus considered me again before calling to a table behind him. "Desdemona, come help this young legionnaire register with the guild." A short woman who had been playing something that looked like Go stood and came over. She was close to my age, but had a weathered face and dark tan from long hours outside. "This way, legionnaire. We can use my father's office." I followed her down a hallway. Her sun-bleached hair smelled like the sea. We entered an orderly office except for the desk with a dozen folders and papers everywhere. She just shuffled everything off to the side and found the parchment sheet she was looking for in the pile. She sat heavily in the desk chair. "Name," she said with some impatience. "Eric Marco," I said, sitting across from her. "Have you ever registered with the guild under a different name?" was her next question. "No, this is my first time," I said. "Okay, the next 10 questions are optional, but," she started to ask. "I will just skip them then. I just want to use the tablets," I admitted. She looked at me, annoyed. She put down the quill and eyed me hard. "Fine. 25 silver to register with the guild and 11 more silver for both the tablets," she muttered, annoyed having to deal with me. I reached inside my chest piece, pulled a gold coin into my hand, and placed it on the table. She stood up, swept the coin, and took the paper that just had my name on it. "Wait here, Legionnaire," she left in a huff. She either did not like me, men, or legionaries in general. It was a good hour before she returned with a circular brass medallion. My name was clearly stamped on one side, and on the back was the symbol of the guild, a globe with a tree in the center of it with numerous branches and detailed leaves. Desdemona tapped it while placing a stack of silver on the desk for my change. "That is your guild emblem. It has your name and number." I turned it over and noted my number, 13,393,919, below my name. I grabbed the 64 coins on the desk. I assumed she gave me 64 single coins, instead of 6 large and 4 small, to try and be a nuisance, because she did not like me. I noted a hole in the token. "There is a hole in the top. Do I wear it around my neck?" I asked. Desdemona tossed me a leather strip from the desk to make a necklace. "Follow me, and I can activate your tablets for you." Before standing and leaving the office, I slowly tied the leather cord to the medallion to irritate. I then asked, "Is there any significance to the number 13,393,919? The impatient woman barked. "The first number is the guild hall you joined in." "This is Guild Hall 13, she paused. "The original guild hall was on the banks of the river, but we relocated here. The second number indicates what your membership number is at this hall, but we only started tracking membership about 1,000 years ago." I followed the short woman out, and she was maybe 5'2" with a muscled hourglass figure. I was a little upset by her attitude. I removed my helm and followed her to a small closet. The tablet was the size of a desk, dominating the tiny room. It was not the handheld one I was accustomed to, and it looked weathered and ancient. Desdemona sat on the other side of the table. I asked. I thought this was a private reading. "Do you have ether and the control to activate the tablet?" Her eyebrows challenged. She was way too smug to be likable. "I do," I said, trying to figure out the tablet. It had everything on this one tablet, all attributes and all affinities. I figured it out after a few moments of studying it. It made sense that I needed to channel my ether, while pressing both my hands into the indentations resembling hands. Desdemona had not left yet. I asked, "Where is the reset so I can erase my results?" She stood and started walking toward the door. She tapped the corner of the tablet as she passed. "Channel ether here, Legionnaire. It will reset and blank the tablet." When the door closed, I locked it from the inside. I stood before the tablet and produced the strength essence from my dimensional space. I would get a reading. Reset the tablet and get a reading again. I placed my hands and channeled my ether. My scores appeared on the tablet, and I consumed the strength essence. Before resetting the tablet, I studied my improvements with the essence worked on my body. My eyes immediately went to the affinities, and I now had an earth affinity of 6. That seemed a little bit of an extreme gain from 0 with 1 apex essence. Next, I confirmed my healing affinity had also increased, up to 23. This improvement was what allowed me to imprint the self-healing spell form. My physical, mental, and magical attributes had gained as well over the last 2 weeks. I had consumed a fair amount of essences, and even now felt the strength essence doing its work. Hopefully, the strength essence would settle before I was disturbed. The last time I did a tablet reading in a city, I was rushed out. When I felt the essence had settled after about 10 minutes, I reset the tablet and activated it again. My actual strength had increased by 2 points, and my potential by another point. This was amazing for a major essence. I confirmed that was the only change and reset the tablet and reset it again. I only felt mildly stronger, but the changes were still ongoing, with my muscles feeling hot and emitting heat like I had a fever. Soon, the essence was spent though, that I was sure of. My goal for the rest of the day was to find somewhere to get the amulet identified anonymously. I unbarred the door to find Desdemona in the hallway waiting. "Wait," she ordered as she went inside to make sure I did not steal or damage anything. She was being awful thorough, checking the tablet and under the table like she did not trust me. As she confirmed the tablet still worked, I asked, "What else do I get for my membership?" Desdemona paused and thought about being abrasive but exhaled and talked cordially. "You can rent a room or bunk in any adventurer's hall. You have access to the job posting boards in the halls. and you also can enter the dungeons we monitor." She finished her inspection. "Also, you get discounts on services like equipment, food, drink, and use the tablets." She studied me like I was not the enemy now. "Nice tan." I offered a compliment that was usually well received in my past life. She gave me a hard look, and then chortled a laugh. "Windburn and cooked is more like it from days spent on deck." "Deck? Like a ship?" I asked. "What else has a deck, Legionnaire?" she said, mocking me but with a slight smile. Maybe she was warming up to me. I ignored the retort. With a good-natured smile, I replied, "Where can I purchase artificed items and potions in the city?" She gave me a strange look. "Here, Legionary. The Imperial alchemists also have a shop near the palace, but our prices are half theirs, and the product is probably better. Most artificed objects need to be ordered and shipped in. It takes about a month. The Telhians purchase anything we stock besides potions." She guessed at my intentions. "You got some gold, and thought you would spend it." She had seen me get my reward for finding the dungeon. "Exactly. Where is your potion shop?" She waved me to follow, and I did. We were soon in a side room that reminded me of the Legion Hall equipment rooms. Except this one smelled strongly of worked leather and weapon oil. A short man was behind the counter, and I blurted, "Are you a dwarf?" He huffed, "Halfling Legionnaire." "Dwarves are not welcome in the Telhian Empire. Halflings are tolerated." He ignored me and looked at Desdemona. "Why is the Legion boy here?" He joined the guild. "Paid." And given his bronze, Desdemona smirked, and the halfling looked resigned to help. "Name is Tarvan Fogbow." "Name is Tarvan Fogbow. I run the guild warehouse in Telha." He held out his small hand, and my hand engulfed his forearm as we shook wrists. At least the man was polite now that he knew it was a member. "Eric Marco, pleased to meet you, Tarvan. I am looking for some potions to help me sleep without dreaming," I asked. Tarvan looked at Desdemona, who rolled her eyes and left us to do business in private. "I have a honey slumber draught." He pulled a blue liquid vial from under the counter. "This does not remove dreams, but makes them pleasant. 10 silver a dose. Then I have oblivion pills." He pulled a jar of red marbles out. "These will knock you out for about 6 hours. No dreaming, just peaceful rest. How much are the pills?" I asked as the jar had dozens of marble-sized pills. "Guild rate is a silver apiece," Tarvan said, tapping the jar. "How do they work? I mean, can I wake up if there is danger?" I asked. "It is just a deep sleep. Someone could wake you, but most likely you are not going to wake on your own. If you took 2 pills, you would be out for a good 8 hours. And no one is going to wake you without some magical help. 3 pills could kill you, and it would definitely kill me." He was very patient, explaining. I pulled out a gold coin and placed it on the counter. "I will take 100. As Tarvan counted out the pills, he said, "If you are having this much trouble with nightmares, you might want an Artifice Dreamcatcher nightcap to do the same thing, or see a guild mage to purge whatever memories are causing them." "I will try this first," I said, taking the glass jar. "I advise against using them out in the wild, Legionnaire. The last thing you want is to have to take time to come to your senses when a gnoll hunting party finds your company's camp at night," Tarvan advised. I nodded at the wisdom, but had been thinking the same thing. "Do you want any healing potions? Stamina potions? How much are they? And maybe a cure disease if you have it," I asked the halfling. He stepped off his platform and went in the back to retrieve a few racks of potions. "I have 6 cure diseases here. I want to note they do not work on magical diseases." He made eye contact to confirm I heard him. "They are 10 gold each, which is a great deal as the Imperials charge 25 for theirs. Except these 2 on the end are a week from expiration. Just a gold each for those." He shuffled the racks, for healing Desdemona just brought in a fresh shipment of potions. "I have a healing ointment, lesser healing, and greater healing. The ointment will close wounds. The lesser potions can heal soft tissue and mend bone, and the greater healing can align and mend bones, and generally heal just about anything, except poison and disease." He motioned to the cure disease potions I was interested in. "Do you have any of the healing ointments or potions near expiration at a discount?" I asked, interested. Tarvan started reading the dates and moved the potions about in the racks. 6 ointments, half off, as they just have a few days left. 50 silver each. Fresh vials are 1 gold, the same as the Imperial alchemists. But the lesser healing potions are 4 gold, 1 gold less than the Imperials. He beamed a white smile at me. I do not have any lesser or greater healing potions getting close to expiration. Greater healing is 40 gold. He held up his hand to stop me. Imperials sell them for 50, so it is a great deal. Why don't you store them in a dimensional space? I asked the halfling. If only we had someone at the guild hall with one. Most of the adventurers avoid the Telhian Empire like a plague. They do not treat us well, no matter what the treaty states, Tarvin said, and his tone told me I was getting him upset since I was a legionnaire. I will take all the expiring stock, the 2 cure disease and 6 ointments. Also 4 lesser healing. I placed 21 gold coins on the counter. He put the vials in 1 rack and pushed it toward me. After the death dog scare, I was happy to have the cure disease potions. The healing ointment was good to have if I was close to running out of aether or needed to close a companion's wounds. 16 gold for the 4 lesser healing potions was insurance if I was out of aether or had a companion in need. I felt I had established a good rapport with Tarvin, so I asked, "Do you know where they identify dungeon artifacts in the city?" "I can do it here, just a gold, and it is private." He eyed me curiously. I had overlooked that the Adventurers Guild monitored the dungeons, so it made sense they could identify dungeon objects. I debated, but this seemed like my best chance to find out what the amulet did without experimenting on it myself. Okay, I have something I wish to have identified. Tarvan's eyes went up in happy surprise, and I slid him a gold. He took it and said, "Follow me." He hopped off his platform behind the counter and went to a door. With his back turned and no one else around, I sent my jar of oblivion pills and the potion rack I had purchased into my dimensional space. Madden, the small man's office was half orderly and half a mess. Forgive the smell. I have to send all the expired potions and broken vials. We do not sell back to the central guild hall. It was not an unpleasant smell, like rotting vegetables with a strong hint of cloves. He closed the door and sat on his desk chair. "Let me see it then." I reached into my armor, pulled the amulet into my hand, and handed it to him. He turned it in his hand, definitely a dungeon artifice device. "I think I may know what it is, but you paid for the full service." He pulled out a parchment with the runic script and placed the amulet on it in front of him. The runic script started to glow a blue-white light that was either working through the runes. Travan's eyes reflected the blue light as he studied the scroll as it worked. When the light faded, he looked up smiling. "Well, Eric, this is quite the intriguing artifact you have here."